Welcome to everything you need to know before you embark on your Alaska Grizzly adventure. Today we have a wonderful panel, and I thank you all for being here today. I'm going to hand it off to you guys.
Good morning, and great to address all you guys and talk about this upcoming trip. So that's what we're going to talk about, everything that you need to know before you take your Alaska Grizzly adventure tour. The three of us, my name is Sean Eggleston. I've been a guide with NatHab for several years now, and I've been guiding the Grizzlies on the Katmai coast for about 14 years now. And then we have Brad. He has been up there for longer than that, even though he's much younger than me. And then Renata. Renata is basically our boss, and Renata, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thanks, Sean. So I am head of field staff here at Natural Habitat Adventures. So I have been with NatHab for about 8 years and oversee all of our field staff and really the logistics that go into the on-the-ground components of the trip. And I also head up our COVID protocols task force, where we put together all the protocols necessary to get us up and running again.
Excellent, thanks. Brad, can you tell us a little about yourself?
I'm just thank you for tuning in. I think this is a great idea for get people prepped and ready. And I know there's lots of questions in these uncertain times. I love to talk about Katmai. I've been guiding there for I think it's something like 23 years. I started very young and doing these trips on the Katmai coast. Very dear to my heart, and I get really enthusiastic about it. I've done a whole bunch of webinars recently during the pandemic about bears and Katmai, so there's tons of information. But this is just a good opportunity just to get down to the details of people that have already booked. Thank you for booking, guys. It's really helping everything. So get excited because it's going to be an amazing experience. That's it.
Thanks a lot, Brad. Yeah, Brad and I are excited because obviously last year a lot of our trips were canceled, and we're excited to get back up there with the bears and in Katmai. But the reason it was canceled is because of the COVID thing. So before we talk about all the wonderful things, Renata, can you help us with COVID and how we're going to deal with this?
Of course. So it's incredibly important to give everyone that is going on a natural habitat trip a little bit of background on how we developed our protocols, sort of where we are with them now and where we see them going. We have actually been running trips since last July. We've run trips in our national parks, Mexico, Kenya, the Galapagos, Costa Rica. We have not had any transmission of COVID in our guests or in our field staff, and a lot of it is due to the time and effort that it takes to put these protocols together. So I want to give you guys a little bit of background on how those were developed and sort of what we're anticipating in the future for these trips, because as we know, a tremendous amount has changed since the start of this and since January. And for these trips that are happening in the summer, there's still going to be a lot of development that's happening. So we just want to give you some background on how we're looking at all of this and how it relates to your trip. So first and foremost, we have when COVID started, we developed a COVID task force, and these were individuals within our operations department whose really sole focus was to create protocols to mitigate the spread of COVID on a trip. And that took a lot of work, and we have a few priorities that we always need to be looking at when we're developing these protocols. So first and foremost, we researched and continue to research guidelines from the CDC and the World Health Organization to create the skeleton of these protocols and sort of have that be our guiding light as we develop these. Next, it's really important for us to share best practices and collaborate with the other experts and companies in the adventure and outdoor travel industry. We took the time to collaborate with those individuals. And then we had to look at our trips and all of our trips specifically. So with all of our trips, we work with a lot of different partners. We work with hotels, restaurants, transportation partners, airlines, and we needed to find out a way to vet their COVID practices. So we have created a process of vetting all of those individuals that we work with. If they're not able to meet our standards, what happens is we try to work with them to meet those standards, or we don't work with them until they're able to do so. Next, we developed a screening process. So that is taking a temperature of our guests and all of our staff each day, and then doing a symptom check as well once they're on trip. And we also work with United Healthcare Global, and if we do find that a guest is showing symptoms on a trip, we have access to their remote doctors, and they can give us essentially a virtual health assessment to determine what the next steps should be. After developing a screening process, it's really important that we make sure that our guides, our field staff are trained in how to implement these COVID protocols. So before every single season starts, I do a personal training with those individuals that are going to be facing our guests. I make sure that we do this before each season, because even since the last year, we've had a lot of changes. So it's really important that those individuals are essentially versed in the most up-to-date protocols. So that's why we make sure we do really intensive trainings with those individuals before the season starts. And then we have expectations. We need to make sure that all of guests' expectations are in line with what we're going to be doing for our protocols. So that is making sure that you guys know really what you're going to have to do to mitigate your own risk, such as wearing a face mask. You need to know what is going to be involved with that. We also want to make sure that you have the ability right when you leave your house to take those steps to mitigate your own risk. So what we do is, before you depart in your pre-departure briefing, we send you 2 KN95 masks, we send you hand sanitizer, we send you alcohol wipes, and we also send you a little blurb on how to mitigate that risk while you are traveling. So very, very important for us to have you take that step prior to even getting out of the house. So the next thing that I want to talk about is what you should expect on trip. And first and foremost, I really need to note that we've been looking at these protocols through the lens of a combination intervention approach. And we've learned that the optimal way to mitigate the spread of COVID on a trip is to provide multiple controls. That way, if one fails, there are other controls in place to mitigate that spread. So first and foremost is respiratory hygiene. We are all very, very used to this. It is wearing a mask. And that is when you are indoors, when you are in vehicles, or when you cannot physically distance from another individual that's not in your traveling party. Next is hand hygiene. So we make sure that we provide ample opportunities for everyone to wash their hands, whether it is with soap and water, or we also provide hand sanitizer during the trip as well, so that's readily available. Next is physical distancing, maintaining at least 6 feet of space between you and other individuals in your household whenever possible. And again, if that's not possible, we're making sure that we are wearing a mask as well. And then finally is enhanced sanitation. And that includes us adding additional levels to our protocols, where we are making sure that high-touch surfaces are cleaned more frequently, and that we are doing more deep cleans of our equipment. So if there's any shared equipment, it's sanitized before you get it, or it's yours for the trip and then given back when we sanitize it prior to. So we have a few additional ones other than our combination intervention approach that I want to chat about right now, because obviously there has been a lot in the news about vaccines and testing. I am sure, honestly, the majority of people on this call either have gotten 1 or 2 doses of the vaccine or know somebody that does. My parents actually just got their 2nd dose today. So things are changing very, very rapidly on that front, and the CDC is putting out new requirements on it. So I just wanted to give you guys an update of where we are at currently with testing and vaccines. And I really want to note that flexibility is key, as we will likely have new recommendations as we get closer to the start of your trip. And if that is the case, which it likely will be, we'll reach out with what those new protocols are, and if there's anything that you have to do prior to the trip, we'll let you know. So first and foremost is testing. Because this is a boat-based trip, we will be requiring guests to get tested at least 5 days before the start of their trip with an antigen test. And then once they arrive, before boarding the boat, we will facilitate a rapid test for everyone as well. And that is to really mitigate the chance of someone having COVID and going on the actual boat. So that is something that we will be facilitating. And with vaccines, at this point, we are not requiring all guests to have vaccines. And part of that is because they're not widely available to the entire population at this point. So you can't just go to a Walgreens whenever you want and get a vaccine. Again, as I noted, it's really important for us to be flexible with these requirements as we see changes. We are seeing incredible distribution levels within the US. I did a webinar yesterday, excuse me, and I think that we were distributing about 2.1 million vaccine doses a day. So that is incredible. And we really do think that things are going to look a lot different a few months from now. So that's what I wanted to tell you about our COVID protocols. Again, flexibility is key. And now I will put it back to Sean and Brad to tell you about what you guys are really here for, which is to learn more about our Grizzlies trips.
Thanks a lot, Renata. I just finished guiding a couple of trips in Yellowstone, and the protocols that you guys have worked so hard on really went flawless. And I'm even more excited about this trip as far as COVID, because we've got some time between now and then. Things are going to change. And the greatest part about this trip, I think, is just how remote we are and how separated we are from everyone else. That's what makes it a true adventure in the wilderness of Katmai. And I have no worries of the COVID side of things. So we appreciate your work on there. Yeah, now let's talk about the fun stuff. What is so special about this trip? Brad, tell me what you think.
Oh, I think, you know, I guide trips. I've guided for, you know, over a decade in Churchill for Aurora polar bears, Borneo, China. So I've interacted over the last 20 years guiding with lots of very heavy wildlife enthusiast travelers. And I can't tell you how many times that I've heard after we pull off a good trip in Katmai over the years that it's, you know, the ultimate wildlife experience in the world, because we are basically on the ground with these bears, and you get a perspective, and you're also interacting with them intimately, not having an effect on it. So I think just the wildlife ethics part about it, I think that the feeling you get when you realize that humans and one of the arch enemies of humans, which is the, you know, the brown bear or coastal grizzly bear, actually can get along if we respect each other. And so I think that's the most beautiful part about it. Plus, bears are one of the most charismatic, or the most charismatic animal in the world, and we are seeing them. And so really it's Alaska at its ultimate. It's the real Alaska. And a lot of people go up to Alaska and they want to see the real Alaska from a cruise ship or an RV, and they don't get it. But this is the ultimate. It's the Alaska's best scenery, and it's Alaska's best bear viewing, the world's best bear viewing. So that's why I love it so much. That's it.
Thanks, Brad. I've got to echo everything you said. I've been a lot of different places, and I've asked and talked with a lot of our guests on all the different places they've been around the world, and it's so, this place is so unique, where you have that intimacy with proximity of such beautiful megafauna, but at the same time we're so removed from everything else, and just that removing ourselves and putting ourselves in such a worldliness, separated, is really exciting, and that's what the adventure is about. So yeah, we're excited about that, but let's answer some questions for some of our travelers. First of all, what do we need to bring? What needs to come from our house, and what is provided by NatHab? Brad, what's that list look like?
Well, I think the best thing that we did, and listening on is the owner of the trip, or destination manager, Anna Avalana, and she went on a trip with me, and it was super rainy, and she agreed that we went to the next level. This was a while ago, like I can't remember, maybe 6 years ago. But I think the best thing that we do as far as preparing clients is these chest waders. They're very, very comfortable, and they don't get too hot in the summer when it's hot, but they also keep you warm and dry, and the wind off of you, so you don't have to worry about rain pants, and we can walk through water. And they're just so that's one thing that's really going to help. So all you need to really worry about is the underlayers, and these are all going to be detailed pretty good in your PBD. But you just need like soft, comfortable clothing to go underneath these waders. Like, you don't want blue jeans, you want something like yoga pants, thermal underwear, sweatpants, or just lightweight summer pants, depending on the weather. And you just need to bring your own raincoat, rain jacket, and then maybe, you know, hat, just like these guys are wearing. So we protect you guys very well. Yeah, I mean, I can't go through the whole list, but what do you think, Sean? You want to take over?
Yeah, so we provide those waders. They're awesome. Bring those layers that go under the waders. There'll be days where you want a couple of layers, and then there'll be days like this one that we're looking at, where we can strip down a little and just need that one layer under them. The one thing, you know, a lot of people think adventure and I need all kinds of different footwear, but what's unique to this trip is you'll need a good, decent, maybe waterproof hiking boot when you spend the day or two in Kodiak before you come out to the boat. But once you're on the boat, there really are two different things you need: light sandals, something to walk around the boat on, and then you're gonna be provided with these waders that have their a boot, their excellent equipment, and you'll always have those on when you're out on the shore with us walking amongst these bears. So just a light shoe or sandal, Crocs, people bring different things like that on the boat is really all you need. As you can see there, we've got head nets. At times, usually the bugs aren't that bad. Being coastal, we get that nice breeze, and we don't have bugs, but we don't have a breeze. We may have a few bugs that we use our head nets on. We provide those. The other thing that people think is maybe they need a seat, something like that, or a walking stick. Those aren't really needed. We encourage you to bring maybe a monopod for your camera, and you can use that as a walking stick. We also have some stuff to provide, and you don't need a seat. You see, we sit on simple 5-gallon buckets. NatHab has been doing this for years and years and years. When we first brought the buckets out there, people kind of looked at us different, and now anyone else that's guiding trips out there kind of follow in our footsteps. The buckets work perfectly, and you'll see that when you get out there. Yeah, the other thing, just good rain jacket, good waterproof gloves at times, and that's what's high on my list.
Let me just add, just real quick, Sean, just because I know a lot of people get confused about the waders. And just to reiterate, basically you're going to wear your own comfortable socks, something kind of warm and comfortable, and they're like pajamas with feet. And then we have exterior boots that will be fit. You know, we have lots of sizes you put on over that, so you don't need to have your shoes on inside the waders. And I think that's a question a lot of times people ask. Go ahead.
Thanks. So let's start talking a little more about the itinerary and arriving, that kind of thing. Our first couple of days are spent on the island of Kodiak. You'll fly in there, you'll arrange your airfare to get to Kodiak, and immediately you'll be picked up there at the airport. It's a really nice small airport, not a lot of hustle and bustle to work through, and you'll see our NatHab guide. So Brad and I are on the boat the whole time. We remain on the boat, and you'll have our guide, either Laura, out there in Kodiak. You'll recognize her as soon as you get off the plane in Kodiak, and she's there to pick you up. We have Mercedes Sprinter vans that she's going to transport you around the island in and do a couple of the activities in. And so she'll see you, you'll see her, and that's where the adventure begins, there in Kodiak. Some of the things that you're going to do with our guide is there's multiple different things. What are some of the fun things that you like to do there in Kodiak, Brad?
Well, I think Kodiak's a really great experience. If you compare it to the experience on the boat with the bears, of course it doesn't really stand up because it's a town, but you appreciate it as it's a town off the road system. So just if you've ever been to a major town, and there's actually 30,000 people in Kodiak, there's just a lot going on, but just think about the fact that you can't drive there. If you go there, you have to fly or take a boat. So it adds a really unique atmosphere. And there's lots of great history, lots of great museums, Russian Orthodox Church. It's a beauty. They call it the Emerald Island. It's gorgeous. So there's going to be a lot packed into that time in Kodiak. And our local guides in Kodiak, either Linda or Laura, are fantastic. And they really provide an insight into a place that if you guys are living in somewhere else in a normal city or the lower 48, it's going to be quite an eye-opening just to see what a off the road system community is like. We take a beautiful cruise. We eat great food on the cruise, and then there's some potentially fantastic marine wildlife viewing there. So it's just a good time to kind of get acclimated, and it's just a really easy couple days. You don't have to worry about jet lag too much. They're easy days, and just get into the feel of being in Alaska before we set off on the rest of the adventure.
Yeah, the stories that I hear as soon as they do come out to the boat there in Katmai is how wonderful their whale viewing trip was, the food that's served in Kodiak, that cool small town feeling that Kodiak has. But we spend a couple days there in Kodiak, and then Linda or Laura are gonna help you get out to Katmai National Park. You can see there in that lower right-hand part of the map there is several bays, Hallow and Kukak and Kaflia, Kinak, all these different bays, and where you start and which bay you start, we don't know. It's all depend on weather, tides, the time of the year, time of the season, geographic bay, but you're going to take off from Kodiak Island, and this is really part of the cool part. One of the cool parts of this adventure is getting on the float plane. Maybe it might be the first time you've ever been on a float plane. These are some of the best pilots in the world when it comes to flying in and out of these remote areas. You'll have load up. Of course, you'll see in the pre-departure booklet that we send you, there's a weight limit, 50 pounds, that you want to keep it down to. If needed, you can leave some of your gear that you had with you there in Kodiak, locked and secured, and then go from there out to Katmai. So you're going to board these float planes. Most of them are Beavers, which is a famous plane built just for this type of work of getting in and out of there. It's only an hour to 45-minute flight from Kodiak over to the Katmai Bay or Katmai Coast. Flying over Kodiak Island is beautiful. I remember last year I was flying out there and we saw 12 bears on the island of Kodiak before we even got to Katmai, and circled over them and took a look at what they were doing. They're small planes, again, some of the best pilots in the world that Brad and I know personally, and we've been flying with them for years. Again, part of really neat, exciting adventure is coming in on these float planes. Brad, tell us about, that's you there. Tell us about what you're doing there.
Yeah. Yeah, the flight is, if you've never ridden a float plane before, it's definitely an awesome experience. And when you're on the float plane, you're going to be able to have a little sort of a hand carry-on, you know, where you can have a camera, you can have binoculars, but be real careful trying to use your binoculars too much. People sometimes get airsick, but we can see orcas, a lot of other different species of whales, sometimes mountain goats, bears on the flight, and then the pilot is narrating it and telling you stuff. So it's really an awesome start of the trip, and you just feel like, okay, now it's really beginning. And you just land out into the bay near the boat. The boat's based wherever we decide is going to be the best place for the most bears, and it's a chess game out there, and we're very good at it. Like I said, we've been doing this for 23 years, knowing this very, very complicated coast better than anybody else, absolutely. And then we will take a skiff out, and your first little adventure will be just by, and we will be there like I am to help people make sure they don't fall, but you walk down these stairs, get into the skiff, and then we go to the big boat. So it's pretty simple. And I will say that Andrew Air, who we use, is, in my opinion, and I've lived all over Alaska, and I know I've lived in Alaska for 23 years, and it is by far the most reliable, one of the most famous, or the most famous air service with the best pilots. I mean, it really is the elite of the bush pilots in Alaska, in Andrew Air. So yeah, so definitely just get excited about that. Absolutely, don't worry, you're going to love that flight. Go ahead.
Right. So part of this adventure again is really, once you leave Kodiak, you're not going to see anything else man-made except for this plane, this skiff, and the Ursus, our boat that we're going to be staying the rest of the trip on. There's no sidewalks. You have to work really hard to see anything else man-made for the next 4 or 5 days. So here's our floating lodge, the wonderful Ursus. Brad, tell us a little about the boat.
Well, a lot of times people will ask, I mean, am I going to get seasick on this? It's not like a cruise to Antarctica or something. So we will go from bay to bay. Usually we might transit for 2 or 3 hours, and we might be exposed to open ocean conditions for maybe an hour, 2 hours. So yeah, definitely the guides in the boat crew will prep everyone. What is the ride going to be like? If you need to take it, something like a bonine, when should you take it, and that kind of stuff. But this boat, what I'll say about it is, it definitely doesn't look like a gorgeous luxury yacht. Well, we don't want that out there. We want a boat, in my opinion, this is ex-Bering Sea crab boat. So it used to fish like the Alaska's deadliest catch. Originally, this was the original Time Bandit. Then the Time Bandit crew, which is famous on that show, they built another boat that was bigger. But we got it, and what we love about it is it's so stable. I mean, it's a tank, and so it can be. There may be another boat out there that's more of a yacht, and they're just sitting on their anchor, back and forth, back and forth. People are getting seasick on anchor, and you can't even you don't feel it at all in our boat. So that is the greatest thing about it. We have cranes. We can load our skiffs on the deck, so we can travel when other boats can't. And also, just for people that like interesting, unique boats, it's a working boat. So it's not, like I said, not the plushest, but we've retrofitted it, and so it's still got the original character of a Bering Sea crab boat, but we've made it made it very nice. We've added, I'm not sure if you're going to show cabin pictures next, Sean, but we've done a ton of upgrades. So in the old days, like if you talk to somebody that was on this boat maybe 7 years ago, there was definitely much less space inside for people to stay, and like shared quarters and shared bathrooms was an issue. We fixed that. On the deck, the huge deck, we've got 4 cabins, each that are I'm sorry, like two cabins that are split into 2 rooms each. And each room has 2 bunks, so you'll be sharing with either your spouse or friend, whoever you're traveling with, or another person that if you're single. And so you'll have there's a bathroom in the middle. So basically there's 2 cabins, or there's 4 cabins, and 2 of the cabins will share a bathroom each. So there's 2 bathrooms, so you'll only be sharing a bathroom with your roommate and then maybe the other couple. So there's really never bathroom issues as far as waiting for bathrooms and stuff like that. And each room has its own sink. So we've really taken any issues out of sort of the luxury accommodations or the comfort levels of the boat. And yeah, so I think Sean, you want to add anything?
Yeah, the way we've outfitted this boat, not only is it the toughest thing out there, so stable, but these accommodations are really nice. Nobody ever complains about getting sleep on the boat, mainly because we'll get you out and about all day long, and you'll be ready for bed after a good laugh over dinner. But yeah, it's great accommodations. Everyone, that's another neat part. It is kind of a famous boat, and everyone loves exploring it. When we first get out there, get off the plane, we'll do a nice safety talk, tell you about the boat, get you guys so that your safety is number one, and you understand everything about the boat. And literally we'll get you up there and see what the rest of the boat looks like and where we can go. You see on these pictures the type of eating facility we have there. The food is amazing. Here's one of our chefs on the right. We have a few chefs that are out there, and the food that they provide is wonderful. We'll talk about the food here. You see a couple of our guests up in the wheelhouse. The view is beautiful from that top. You're allowed to go up there at any time, take your binoculars. Often when you're we're on the boat, we can see bears on the shore, just waiting for us to come say hi. But have you ever lost weight on the boat, Brad?
No, never. I think that my favorite quote is from one of the NatHab staff that works in the office, and NatHab staff can go on lots of trips and kind of check them out, and she'd been on a bunch. I'm talking luxury trips in Africa and all these different ones. Emily Deemer, actually. And she said that, and it was, my wife was the chef on the boat at the time, and she is often. She said that was by far the best food that she's ever had on a NatHab trip. And if you're familiar with how NatHab definitely focuses on feeding good food, that says a lot. And so I think that's about it. And it's amazing if you're a chef or a cooking person to appreciate what it takes to be a chef out there, because you can't just go to the grocery store and get something. You have to plan ahead, way ahead, because you're only accessible for basically the whole summer just by a small amount of supplies, maybe fresh stuff that comes in on the plane. So, you're really talking about some of the best chefs that around as far as being very talented. That's it. There's Carrie, one of our other chefs. They're all fantastic.
Yeah, I lost count of how many different fridges and freezers we have on the boat. The way they're able to store that food, get it ready, but at the same time, while we're watching bears, they may go catch some fresh halibut or fresh salmon, and next thing we know, we got ceviche on the table. The crew that is on the boat, we have this is Captain John. They're wonderful. We have a chef, we have a first mate, and the captain of the boat out there with us. Again, like Renata mentioned, they're all tested, they've been quarantined, and they're excited to interact with our guests and get out there. part of, again, the trip is going from the Ursus to the shore where we view, and we do that on what we call a skiff. Here's a picture of our guests. You notice they all got PFDs on, and we're working our way in. This is Kuliak, working our way in. A lot of our movement and where we go and how we get to places is all because of the tides. There's average tide out there is 18 feet. So we're constantly knowing what the tide is and where we can go. But moving from back and forth is on the skiff is Captain John again. That island behind him, we actually named that island after him. And here's a picture of get on and off the boat. At times we may be able to drop that front gate right onto the shore, and at other times, because of that massive tide that I was talking about, we're going to be waiting. And that's where our waders are awesome. You see they're, you know, in knee-deep water. The guides are there at the gate to help you on and off, and we go from there. Anything to add on that, Brad?
No, I think the trips, it's hard to, aren't physically, like there's no cardiovascular, there'll be very little up and downs. It's not like you're hiking up mountains to get to the bears. They're all right on the beach. So you don't need to be in super great cardio shape. And we walk very slowly because we want the bears not to be intimidated by us in the group all the time. I think that as far as the physical limitations, it varies based on the tides and where we're going to be. But you know, you can expect to walk several miles a day, but you also do a lot of sitting, waiting, and in one spot, watching the bears or waiting for bears to show up. I think that it's just kind of an agility thing. As far as being able to walk in the water, you're not going to be walking on boardwalks. If you've been to Brooks Camp or Yellowstone, I mean, everything's a trail, everything's a boardwalk or a road. There's none of that there. But it's not difficult. But if you were going to maybe train for the trip, it would just be walk around out in the woods and kind of get used to walking on spots where there's not a trail or a boardwalk or pathway. But you know, guides are always there to help and make sure everybody's safe. And we've never had any kind of it's amazing, any accident that I can remember in the 23 years that I've been out there. Not a bear accident, not an injury. So yeah, we pretty much got it dialed down. But you just got to be able to walk around, you know, just in the bush, on the meadows, on the sand, through shallow water, those sort of things. Go ahead.
Yeah, our safety record is amazing. We're going to keep that going for years to come. Part of that is all the prep that we do for you. Here's another good shot of those waders that are you look so good in. You can see their boots. Their boots are made for this kind of terrain. The boots are made to be walking on slippery ground and that kind of thing. And yeah, our safety record is #1, and we'll continue that. Another shot of what to expect while we're out there with the bears. Here we see we probably set our guests up there. They were probably on maybe some dry sand, and as the tide moves in, the water starts moving in on us, or could be the opposite. But here we are in Hallow Bay, watching a mother and cubs, and everyone's got their nice day pack with them that they can keep on their back or sit down next to them, and really get an idea of what it's like out there. You see here the intimacy and how close we're going to be at times. And really what Brad and I's job is to do is, one, again, talk about, you know, provide your safety. We're going to provide for the safety of the animals, all the animals out there, and we're going to provide you and facilitate putting you in a place where we're going to be able to watch the bear behavior, watch all the different things that are going on at that time. And it's not just bears, is it, Brad? This is a young wolf that we happen to come across on a trip. Brad's had a lot of experience with the wolves out there. We tend not to see them maybe in a pack habitat or activities that you may think of, because Maybe when the salmon are running, the wolves are able to hunt fish on their own. They don't need a pack to grab the salmon. But again, you see they're sitting on our buckets, they're comfortable, and everyone is able to photograph at their will.
Yeah, and Sean, I think those pictures really show something. That we have special techniques that we use in order to ethically go out there. Like, we know how we can behave as a group in certain things, like stay together as a group, walk slow. We don't spread out and just wander around. We're always right together. And then whenever we get to a spot, we're always sitting, not because the folks need to take a rest, but as we sit down like that, it means to the animals who are used to us out there that we've gotten our little spot, our little personal space, which we have so the bears know not to bother that personal space, and we will tell the bears whatever to please give us a little more space if we need to. But mostly it's just about having a neutral presence out there, and those bears are so used to that kind of language. If you know how to behave out there, you know where to sit down, when to sit, how to manage a group like that, then the animals get more comfortable, and they basically, you fade away in the landscape just like you were a gull sitting on the shore. And so I think that's a fantastic thing. But really, when I say that our priorities out there are, number one is safety. Like, the safety of the people is number one, absolutely. Number two is making sure the bears are not disturbed. We're not chasing them around to get pictures. We strategically put ourselves in places, and if we do that and the bears aren't disturbed, then we will get to the number three priority, which is the quality of the viewing in the pictures. And if we respect the bears the right way, the bears will reward us with that quality rather than we try to push it. So we're real careful about that sort of stuff. But you'll hear all about that when you get out there.
Right. I think one of the first things that our guests are going to notice is our respect for the wildlife. We're walking into their house. This is their place, their house, their kitchen, their bedroom, and we're going to have our ability to interact and be among them is because of years and years and years of guides having respect for the wildlife and understanding that this is their home. And because of that respect and because of how we have curtailed our behavior, it allows for us to just blend in as a small group sitting on buckets. I think that they think our language is click, 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 because that's what our camera noises sound like. But because of that respect, NatHab is able to facilitate something wonderful. One of the big questions, Brad, is what can we expect at different times? Our season goes from mid-June to mid-September, and we're going to see bears at all times. But what also plays into that? What can we expect?
Yeah, this is always the most common question asked about any destination that I guide. That people see, when's the best time? Well, definitely for Katmai, there's not a best time. They're just very different as you move through the summer season, and you just have to pick which one you want. And I'm assuming everybody's kind of knows when they're going for what reason. And I've done a bunch of webinars on photography out there. I mean, just so many about Katmai Coast, and there's just not a better time. But in June, which you can expect, you will not see fishing for salmon. But because they're not fishing for salmon, they have a lot more time for social interactions. So a lot of these pictures that you'll see that we're going to show of these moms and the cubs they've got their beautiful winter coats, the really bushy winter coats. They're either sitting in these gorgeous meadows or out on the clam flats. That's before salmon. So you're going to see some super unique behaviors, social behaviors like mating season behaviors, these kind of things, and then they're going to be utilizing different things than salmon. When the salmon come in, it's obviously goes without saying, it's amazing to see them catch the salmon, but you get to see all these other unique. So like when I'm guiding film crews and stuff, these are actually more interesting for the production companies. They want to get the other side of the story, not just the salmon fishing. So you'll get to see that. Now July is a transition time. You can maybe go back to that previous slide, Sean. No, the one with the words. There you go. So July really is a great month for variety. You may get more cubs. They'll be a little older, but when mating season, which is fantastic in itself, as that winds down, the less mating season, you'll get more cubs because it's less chaos. Because mating season is pretty dramatic and can be violent, and that usually can make the moms and cubs go away. But that being said, some of my best pictures and interactions have been in June. But July, you're going to get more cubs, no mating season or very little mating season behaviors. A mellow month for weather. It's probably the best month for weather. You're going to get the flowers that come out. And you see a lot of variety. They'll be fishing for flounder. They might fish for salmon for a little bit when the early runs come in. They'll still be grazing in the meadows. So you get a lot of variety. And then August, pure fishing. And September, fishing, fall colors. The bears begin to get their winter coats again. The sun's at a lower angle for photography. That's better. The weather's not going to be quite as good as it is in the other months. But that's kind of the rundown. They're all fantastic. Yeah, I think you need to go on this trip 4 times and you won't be disappointed. But yeah, this is a classic, like late June. These are late June pictures. Look at these are the most beautiful bears in the world. These females that we have in Hallow Bay. They're shaggy, they're blonde, and before they lose that winter coat in June up until early July, you got snow in the mountains, vert and green meadows, and they've got time. And the tensions aren't so high from just competing for a salmon stream. They have time to socialize, like these 2 families, 2 mothers and cubs. And we actually know, we're very familiar with these families. We know their personalities, and there's a lot of history that goes back to these bears. So anyway, I guess my point is that if you've booked a trip, it doesn't matter. You're going to love it.
Yeah, I think just you and I are a good testament to that. The last couple of years, I've been leading these expeditions in the fall, and this coming year, I get to do June through July, which is normally when Brad's going. So I'm excited about that, to get back to some of those other behaviors that I haven't seen in the last year or 2, and Brad's excited to get back to seeing the salmon fishing and that kind of thing. So you're right, Brad. There's not a good time. It's just whenever you're going, you're going to have an amazing time. Before we move on a little, Renata, have we skipped over anything? Anything that any questions that you think we need to answer as we're talking about our activities out there?
I think one that a few people asked before the webinar started was what type, if they're a photographer, what's a good camera lens to bring? I am not one, so I cannot answer that question.
Well,
I'll take that. Yeah, I'll take that. You're going to have, it doesn't matter what camera, even if it's just a phone or if it's the highest end body with a 600, you're going to have great opportunities for anything. So really whatever you bring is good. I think that if I was going to have to say, I'm going to have to bring one lens or recommend one lens, it's usually like a 100 to 400 zoom. That's probably the most common, most successful, most versatile lens. That being said, a lot of my great pictures, I took it with a 70 to 200. Now I have a 200 to 600 Sony. So really, you just kind of get what you work with. There are going to be times where the bears are really close. There's also going to be times where they're far away, and you get these great landscape shots where you're able to zoom out to 100 or 70 millimeters. But that's a kind of a tough question. But I think that 100, but it's all 100 to 400 is probably your best bet. But 70 to 3 is great. If you want to have a big lens, it's good. I had one question already sent in early about whether or not I have a tripod. This person says that she has a 100 to 400 lens. Should I bring a tripod? And I think that's really, we're going to be doing our bear viewing in like good light conditions, and the animals are going to be moving around. So I tend to always handhold mine. But a lot of people bring tripods out there, but it's more about how comfortable you are holding your lens. I mean, are you able to hold it up? Or is it too heavy? Do you get tired? It's nice to have it on a tripod. Monopods are also, really good. So, and I think I'm going to do a blog post with all the questions that we won't have time to answer. And you'll be able to see my email address, and you can actually email me directly for more specific questions about that kind of stuff, because everybody's camera gear is different. So it's kind of hard to blanket answer that question, other than 100, 400, probably the most popular lens.
I completely agree, Brad. The majority of my photos have been that 70 to 200 range. Going up to 400 is great. And all these photos are Brad and myself and the other guides that are up there. The great thing that we are offering is Brad and I are first and foremost, we're guides, but we're also professional photographers. And part of our responsibility, or part of what we do, is help you guys in every possible way to capture the moment, to really tell the story through your photos. We're going to help you with your logistics and your operating your cameras if you have questions. We do photo talks at night maybe, but that's part of what you're coming out to enjoy is not only what's in front of you, but you've got Brad and I talking, and Justin also talking about how we can capture that moment and helping you with your photography.
And I will say another great prep for you guys to just learn is watch the webinars, and you can just go over and you'll just see the ones on bears. I think I've done 3 so far just on bear photography. So there's a lot of, and Court does a lot of bear or photography webinars. So there's a lot of homework you can do just by watching these recorded webinars. And so you can just kind of get yourself, prepped, and there's so much information. I mean, it's basically, we cover stuff, the bear biology part, the photography part, that it's going to be a week. Well, we'll be out there for 4 days with us, but you can kind of prep yourself by watching some of those recorded webinars.
Yeah, and it's not all about the bears. There's a circle of life out there that's all a part of Katmai, and it all really feeds, and the ecosystem is more than just bears. We've got the sea life, we've got the salmon, we've got the birds, the bird photography that is going to be available to you. Here we got a juvenile eagle just nice and close to us. We're going to see oyster catchers. They're amazing, cool looking birds. To see these colors out there in the middle of nowhere is just a blast. Our puffins are out there, and yeah, the eagles, you're going to be closer to eagles than you usually are anywhere else. I know we're winding up on time, so Kendall, do we have other questions that have come in during this?
Yeah, we've got a lot of good questions actually, and I just want to remind everyone who's watching, if you do have a question for our panel today, you can submit those in your control panel under the questions field. Okay, Renata, first question's for you. If you've been vaccinated, do you still have to have a test prior to departure?
Great question. This question is coming up a lot. And I do want to reiterate, flexibility around our COVID protocols is going to be key, because the CDC will be saying different things as we get more and more of the population vaccinated. But at this point in time, the CDC is recommending that you do get tested if you have been vaccinated, because they do believe that you can still potentially transmit that disease. So at this point, yes, that is still the case.
Okay, great. Thank you for clearing that up.
And I will add, just in case there's people out there, I know that there's some people say, oh, I got tested and it was terrible. I've had a bunch of tests and it's a no problem. I don't know, so don't worry. I mean, it's nothing. Like, they stick something up your nose for a second. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Brad. Okay, we've got a lot of questions about just details on the trip, so I'm going to get to those. What do you anticipate would be the lowest temperature you can expect on a trip?
I would say we can get in the 40s at times. However, in the morning it could be high 40s. We're in the 40s, and within 2-3 hours we could have a 10 to 20 degree jump in temperature. But I think the lowest would be 40s. That's why we encourage those layers. And as the temperature goes up, we just strip off a couple of those layers. But I think that's 40s and rain is going to be, some people refer to that as bad weather. We don't call it bad weather. We call it bad gear. And if you have good gear and the stuff that we provide you, we can even make the 40-degree temperature very comfortable.
Great. And how much time is, oh, go ahead, Brad.
Oh, I'm just saying, I think that, the temperature, if you look at the temperatures, it doesn't always tell you everything. It's going to be usually like, I'd say around 60 degrees. And it might get like a really hot day would be in the mid 70s, and you strip all the way down to waders and a t-shirt. But it can get cold, even though it doesn't look like cold if you're from Wisconsin and you say, well, 55 degrees is nothing. But if you're out there in the wind and it is raining and cool, and we're out there for a long time, and humid, it can feel much colder. So definitely you're going to want to bring some pretty heavy underlayers, thermal underwear, fleece, those kind of things, because it can be a lot colder than you think it's going to be if you're not used to those coastal Alaska conditions.
Okay, thank you. A few people want to know how much time is spent off the boat and if there are bathroom breaks during the day.
I'll go for this. I guess on average, we probably will spend 4.5 hours in the morning, come back for lunch and a break, and then go back out for 4.5 in the afternoon. Sometimes the conditions are such that we don't want to do that, and maybe we'll get our lunch delivered out there to us. As far as bathrooms go, you just got to pee in the woods. And so it's got to be squatting behind grass or trees or something like that. Because there's no porta potties or outhouses, and sometimes it can be very difficult to get all the way back to the boat just to use the bathroom. So pretty much we have to use the bathroom outside. That's it.
Okay. And so on that note, a few people wanted you to just quickly take us through what a typical day is like out there, and in particular, what these new COVID protocols might look like on a typical day.
So I think the biggest thing, especially with COVID, is we can't tell you exactly right now because things are changing on a daily basis. But we know if we were to go out there tomorrow, we have all the options and all the abilities to handle COVID. However, we're months away, so exactly what it's going to look like then, we'll see, and we'll have that flexibility. But we do have all the options available to make it a very safe trip. As far as the day goes, that's part of the adventure. It's constantly changing based on bears, weather, tides, all that. But real quickly, we're going to wake up. We're going to have a wonderful breakfast. Your guide's going to help you understand what the tide looks like, what the weather looks like, and we'll make a game plan for the day of going out for a few hours, coming back for lunch, going back out for a few more hours, and then coming back for dinner and story time and reflecting on how great the day was, and looking at your photos, downloading, that kind of thing. There's a good point that we didn't mention. You can always be charging batteries for your cameras. You can have your laptop plugged in. There's 3 different generators on the boat, so we're always have power available to us. No need for solar chargers, no need to buy 12 different batteries. Everything can be charged as we're going. So hopefully that answers the question, but part of the adventure is just come out and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, great, thank you. Is there opportunity to wash clothing while you're on the trip?
We do have a washer and dryer.
You're going to be out there for, Yeah, we do have a washer and dryer. Generally, people are only out there for 4 days, but like if somebody needs it, we can definitely do that. We don't do tons of laundry out there because we try to conserve water a little bit, but if somebody needs it, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. And can the chefs accommodate gluten-free diets?
Yeah, so you're going to get a survey from NatHab. We're looking for all kinds of stuff like that, especially dietary issues. COVID or not COVID, gluten-free, all that kind of stuff, our chefs are some of the best, and they're able to provide and work around all that. And nobody's going to lose weight. I guarantee that.
Yeah, we can do vegan. If you like seafood and fish, you're going to be really impressed with this trip. However, if you don't like those things, we're very, very used to that. Our chefs are, and they will always provide you with a different meal. So incredibly versatile. I mean, that's what NatHab is. We don't hold back on any of that stuff. If the chef can't deal with those kind of things, then it's just not the program for them.
Awesome, thank you. And how often do you find that guests get seasick or air sick and need things like Dramamine or other prevention?
We suggest that if you have had that in the past, to have maybe a supply of that. I personally have never had anyone seasick or air sick on this adventure. Like we said, that boat, it's a flat bottom boat. Those tanks where they used to put the crab in is actually still full of water. That's the way the boat was designed, to have thousands and thousands of gallons of fresh water going through it to keep the crab alive when they're harvested. So the boat is just it's a sitting fortress. There's very little movement. So I've never had anyone get sick. It's going to be a rarity.
And then Sean's got our Instagram pages. If you guys want to check out more pictures like this in different places that we guide, you can just see our names up there. Brad Joseph's photos, and then Sean, you got two accounts. I don't know.
Yeah, I've had the A Smoky Firefighter for years, and now I just started the Wild Adventure Guide, and love for you guys to follow me if you'd like.
Great. So we had a couple questions about buckets and other details about when you're out watching bears. One, do we carry our buckets? Two, are they padded? Three, can we put stuff in them while we're sitting on them? And what about water, snacks, lunch, things like that while we're out observing bears?
Yeah, so the buckets, you will carry them. They're super lightweight. It does work for you to put things in them, and they have a lid. I wouldn't call it padded. So bring your own padding in your behind. But I've never had anyone really have an issue of saying I'm sitting too long or anything like that. They work really well. The reason those work better than any little seats or stools is those will sink into the sand or mud. The buckets don't sink. What was the second half of that question?
Are things like water, snacks, lunch available while you're out observing bears?
Yeah, so everyone's provided with those NatHab cups and drink canteens. We'll fill those up. You'll take it out. The guides will have plenty of water with them also. And then we also will have some snacks out there. We'll keep you guys, your blood sugar levels up. We'll have that, and Brad and I will the guides will manage those things because of the guides' behaviors and how we've dealt with these bears. If we're having a granola bar 40 feet from them, they're not going to look at us and say, hey, you're going to share that granola bar. They don't know what a granola bar is. What they know is they want the salmon or the clams or the sedge to eat, and we're going to eat our granola bars, and we're going to be just fine. They've never asked me to share my peanut butter and jelly.
Okay, and final question today, because I know we're running past the hour and I want you guys to be able to go off and get to your meetings. What about rain protection for your camera while you're out in the field? Is a backpack okay? Would you recommend a dry bag?
I'll hit this. My personal, I love to have a dry bag backpack. See, there's Grundens, and I'll put a link onto what I use when I do. I'm going to answer all the questions and do a little blog article, and that article will get sent to you guys, or just more in-depth answers and stuff like that. But I'm constantly putting my backpack down on the ground and things like that. And sometimes it rains a lot, and so I have a dry backpack. Some people have a backpack rain cover. So I think a dry bag's the best. That way you don't have to worry about whatever happens.
You guys can.
And
go ahead. I was just
no,
going to say,
go
you guys can refer to Brad and I's bio page on NatHab's website. Both of us as pro photographer leaders, expedition leaders, we've listed what we carry and our personal gear that we find has been the best for years. And so you can refer to that. I have a backpack that I love. As soon as the guests get out there, they're like, wow, that's really cool. It works well. It's listed on my bio page. So that might help you, and reach out to us on the Instagram or send us an email before your trip comes up, and we'll help you be as prepared as possible.
Great. And one more question came in, so I'm going to throw it out there right before we end here. Are there any colors to avoid in terms of what you're wearing?
I'll do that. No, the bears don't really care. Bears do see color, but they don't care about. They've seen enough. They understand. I mean, we're talking about an animal that's smarter than the smartest dog, and we're not the first people that they've seen. And so it doesn't matter. They've seen it all. You know, they even get used to airplanes landing and things like that. What I would say is, in my personal opinion, I tend to avoid, but it's not necessary. If you've got a coat you want, it's okay. But when I'm picking out things to wear, I tend to pick muted colors, just because I think that if there's other groups out there, it tends to just be a little bit less visually impactful. But it's not necessary and does nothing to do with the bear safety. But I would rather wear a muted sort of natural color than like a bright fluorescent orange. But that's just my opinion, John.
My wardrobe always is based on the flower of the day. So on today, I would be wearing, you know, nice whites and yellows to match the daisies. That's just how I work.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for this wonderful presentation. It was very informative. I do apologize for those watching if we didn't get to your question today, but please know that you can get in touch with your adventure specialist here at the office. You can dial that phone number on the screen or give us an email, and we'll be happy to answer any further questions you may have. All right, you three, I'm going to hand it back over to you for any closing comments you want to make, and we'll start with Renata.
Thank you guys all for joining this. I haven't been on this trip yet, but everyone that comes back from it is changed from the experience. So I hope you're all so excited for your journey this summer. You will absolutely love the experience, and thank you for tuning in.
And Brad?
Yeah, like I said, reach out. I'm gonna write up a report with all the questions, some more information, maybe embed the other webinars that I've done so you guys can watch them. So that'll all come in a link to a little blog post that I'll do soon. And there was just one thing that I wanted to add about that question about the buckets. What we have are these, it's actually a bucket seat lid that's made for it. So it's kind of soft plastic and it's round. So it's not going to be as harsh as just a normal bucket lid. But if that's not good enough, we have these like little square flotation mats that we use for when you're sitting in the skiff. And so if sometimes people will just grab that along because it doesn't weigh anything, stuff that in their bucket, and it's just a little bit more comfortable. So you wouldn't need to bring a pillow or a mat to sit on. So we'll keep you comfortable that way. So don't worry about that. But otherwise, I look forward to seeing the guys that are going to be on my trip. Be excited about meeting Sean if he's your guide. Sean's an incredible dude. He guides a lot of different places. He's also a firefighter in Colorado. So, you're in good, safe hands. I used to be an EMT. So I think the other guide you might have is Justin Gibson, which is one of my, Sean and I, one of our very close friends. So it's just an awesome, awesome team. And there's not much you should do really other than look forward to it because it's going to be awesome. Thank you.
Great. And Sean?
Thanks for joining us today. I hate that we have a couple more months before we get to see you guys. But hopefully this prepared you. Brad and I are going to be, and Justin are all going to be prepared, excited, and we can't wait to see you out there. And thanks a lot.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone. And my thanks as well to everyone who tuned in today. Please know that we did record today's presentation, so we'll send the replay out to you soon. And with that, I'll conclude the webinar. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.